Floor, and you know what I'm talking about here on my channel right now. It's
in the glittering yet treacherous corridors of Hollywood, where fame is currency and perception often outweighs truth. Few scandals have shaken the industry as violently as the escalating drama entwining Taylor Swift, Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Travis Kelce, and Justin Baldoni. A saga that began with whispers of blurred boundaries on set, but rapidly spiraled into a public battlefield of egos, reputations, and money where the stakes rose higher with every passing leak, deposition threat, and courtroom maneuver. And at the very heart of it all stood Taylor Swift, whose name, brand, and reputation tower like a colossus over the entertainment world, making even the suggestion that she could be dragged into this legal storm as a witness or deponent enough to send shockwaves across fanbases and tabloids alike. Because for years Swift has maintained her carefully curated image as a global superstar untouchable by Hollywood's dirtiest scandals. Yet here she was being pulled into the mess created by Blake Lively's explosive legal battle with Justin Baldoni, a battle that had already scorched reputations and threatened to expose truths that no one in the celebrity hierarchy wanted unearthed. And as gossip reporters sharpened their pens and legal analysts dissected every filing, the narrative transformed into something darker. A question of power and manipulation where old friendships and alliances clash with self-preservation and ambition. Because what really happens when a celebrity of Swift's magnitude is forced into the witness chair, compelled under oath to speak truths that could ruin careers, fracture friendships, and reshape Hollywood's perception of who is the true puppet master and who is the pawn. And to grasp the sheer magnitude of this unfolding scandal, one must trace the threads from the beginning, back to when Blake Lively, once adored as the flawless golden girl of both the red carpet and romantic comedies, launched her legal offensive against Justin Baldoni, an actor and director once celebrated for his sensitive artistry but now framed in headlines as a manipulative opportunist. Yet as his camp countered with meticulously gathered evidence, behind-the-scenes footage, crew testimonies, production notes, the story flipped, casting Lively not as the victim but as the orchestrator of her own narrative, allegedly manipulating intimate scenes only to later weaponize them as ammunition for a multi-million-dollar payday. And in the middle of this chess match of accusations and rebuttals stood Ryan Reynolds, Lively's husband and one of Hollywood's sharpest self-promoters, a man whose comedic wit often masks his cold calculation, torn between defending his wife publicly while quietly reckoning with the mounting evidence that threatened to turn her credibility into dust. While looming just beyond the spotlight was Travis Kelce, NFL star and Taylor Swift's current partner, whose presence in this storm symbolized not just the intersection of music, sports, and film celebrity, but also the dangerous way in which Swift's personal and romantic life could be weaponized in court or media spin. Because if Baldoni's side truly intended to subpoena Swift, to put her under oath, then the world would witness something it had rarely seen before. A global superstar dragged into a scandal not of her making but of her proximity, forced to choose between protecting friends like Lively and Reynolds or revealing truths that could align her closer to Baldoni. And as speculation ran rampant about whether she would resist, comply, or fight tooth and nail to avoid deposition, one fact became undeniable. The mere possibility of Taylor Swift being compelled to testify injected a nuclear level of drama into what was already the most sensational Hollywood scandal in years. For fans and critics alike began to ask if this was merely about blurred boundaries on a film set or if it was, in truth, about the ruthless ways celebrities manipulate narratives for control, money, and survival. And so the paragraph of this scandal grew thicker, darker, more intoxicating as every new piece of leaked testimony or judicial ruling reframed the players as victims one day and villains the next, making it impossible to know who, if anyone, was telling the truth, or whether truth even mattered in a place like Hollywood where perception is reality and reality is always negotiable. Because as the scandal deepened, whispers turned into outright accusations and accusations turned into courtroom strategy, leaving Taylor Swift's name to hover like a sword of Damocles over the entire affair, with both sides calculating whether her testimony would destroy them or save them. And at the same time, Blake Lively's image began to crack in ways few thought possible, since for over a decade she had cultivated the aura of being untouchable. The glamorous actress, the doting mother, the witty half of Hollywood's most enviable marriage with Ryan Reynolds, But beneath that sheen, the lawsuit and the leaks painted her as someone driven by greed, control, and cunning manipulation, a far cry from the persona her fans adored. And the cruel irony was that her attempt to control the narrative only seemed to accelerate her downfall, because once Baldoni's team revealed evidence suggesting she had staged or at least choreographed the very moments she later claimed victimhood from, the industry began whispering about her motives, tabloids framing her not as the wronged party, but as a chess player who overplayed her hand. While Ryan Reynolds, long celebrated for his ability to spin any story with charm and humor, now found himself cornered, unable to joke away the storm that consumed his household. In the glossy world of Hollywood, where image is currency and whispers carry the weight of knives sharpened in private, the tangled saga between Taylor Swift, Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, Travis Kelce, and Justin Baldoni has come to embody everything intoxicating, terrifying, and destructive about celebrity power, because what began as friendly dinners, public smiles, and Instagram captions dripping with adoration has curdled into suspicion, depositions, and looming humiliation, the likes of which no fan ever imagined and no rival ever dared predict. And the narrative unfolding now feels less like gossip, and more like a Shakespearean drama retold on TMZ, where each star plays a role they never auditioned for but cannot escape. With Taylor positioned as both victim and weapon, Blake recast from America's Golden Girl into an alleged schemer, whose money games threatened to destroy the very friendships she once flaunted, Ryan forced to reckon with whether his marriage was built on PR strategy rather than love, Travis dragged into a whirlpool of deceit that tarnishes his clean-cut football image, and Justin Baldoni, unexpectedly, at the center of it all, wielding documents, testimony, and credibility that could shatter careers and leave Hollywood gasping at the sheer audacity of what has been revealed. It all began quietly, in the way most Hollywood scandals do, with blind items circulating online that hinted at a power couple living a double life, with an actress beloved by middle America, allegedly manipulating money streams in ways that looked clean in public but, behind closed doors, cut corners, shifted blame, and sought scapegoats, and the blinds became juicier when anonymous sources claimed another actress, who fans quickly speculated was Taylor, had unwittingly become entangled in the scheme, not by choice but by proximity, forced to either turn a blind eye or risk a friendship imploding on the spot, and Taylor, known for her meticulous control over her brand and narrative, found herself cornered in a way she had never been before, because Blake wasn't just a friend, she was her chosen sister, the woman she paraded with at premieres, the confidant who helped her nurse heartbreaks and strategize comebacks, but also allegedly, the same woman who now dangled Taylor's loyalty as leverage, ensuring that silence would look like complicity while honesty could ignite nuclear fallout. And when whispers turned to formal complaints, when gossip transformed into legal filings, the world suddenly saw Justin Baldoni not as a heartthrob director with a penchant for wholesome speeches, but as the unlikely whistleblower who had stumbled upon, or been dragged into, receipts that painted Blake not as the victim she had portrayed herself to be, but as the architect of a financial labyrinth designed to benefit herself at the expense of those who trusted her most. And as his legal team quietly built a case brick by brick, Hollywood insiders began to murmur that the house of cards was trembling. And once Taylor's name surfaced in potential deposition lists, the story was no longer just about Blake and Justin, but about the possibility that the world's most powerful pop star might be forced to sit in a room, under oath, with cameras and court reporters capturing every syllable, testifying either against her best friend or in defense of the truth, a prospect that sent both the Swiftie fandom and the entertainment press into frenzy, because Taylor's testimony could become the linchpin that either saves Blake's reputation or obliterates it forever, and Ryan Reynolds, long accustomed to smirking his way through interviews and weaponizing sarcasm as both shield and sword, found himself caught in a storm where no amount of Deadpool humor could deflect, because as Blake's husband his financial entanglement could not be denied, meaning the Reynolds empire, complete with gin brands, production companies and billion-dollar endorsements, suddenly looked vulnerable, like an empire built on sand shifting beneath the tide. And into this chaos stepped Travis Kelce, America's football sweetheart turned global sensation thanks to his romance with Taylor, a man who had once believed his hardest battles were fought on the field, but now discovered the brutal terrain of media warfare, because his association with Taylor his proximity to the scandal, and his own whispered frustration that she was being used as collateral in a war she never asked for, meant his name too became fodder for late-night punchlines and fan speculation, with NFL commentators and gossip bloggers equally obsessed with whether the All-American tight end would stand by his girlfriend as she waded into Hollywood quicksand. And the truth is that while Justin Baldoni never set out to be the executioner of reputations, his steady accumulation of evidence, his refusal to be intimidated by the Reynolds lively machine, and his calculated release of just enough information to keep the public salivating without overplaying his hand, has turned him into a folk hero of sorts, a man painted by some as the David standing against the Goliaths of Hollywood privilege, while others accuse him of opportunism, of waiting for the perfect moment to strike when the players involved had the most to lose. And yet regardless of motives, the story has exploded beyond the control of PR teams, because every press release Blake issues, every staged paparazzi walk Ryan participates in, every carefully curated Instagram post Taylor shares, is dissected not as content but as strategy, proof of guilt or innocence, loyalty or betrayal. And as one crisis manager leaked to the press, this isn't just about money anymore, it's about survival. Reputational survival, marital survival. And in Taylor's case, the survival of an empire that stretches far beyond music into politics, culture, and global influence. Which is why the possibility of her deposition looms so heavy. Because unlike other stars who can dodge subpoenas or settle quietly, Taylor Swift represents a brand too large, too transparent, too followed, to escape unnoticed, and should she be forced under oath, the world will not just hear from Taylor Swift the friend, but from Taylor Swift the witness, a woman, compelled by law to answer questions with no guitar, no stadium, no perfectly timed bridge to rescue her. And that thought alone has Blake reportedly spiraling, because for all her careful crafting of image, from Gossip Girl darling to Hollywood mom, from lifestyle entrepreneur to red carpet muse, she cannot control what Taylor will say once the oath is taken, nor can Ryan, nor can their team of lawyers, because once truth collides with loyalty in a courtroom, all the staged smiles in the world collapse into silence. And the irony is not lost on anyone that it was Blake who once declared in interviews that she valued authenticity over everything, and Taylor who wrote in her lyrics about the agony of betrayal. And yet now those very words hang like daggers over them both, promising a reckoning that no fan base, no Marvel cameo, no NFL touchdown can delay. Because in Hollywood the truth doesn't set you free, it sets the stage for your downfall or your rebirth, and everyone is waiting to see which fate awaits them. Because what the world is witnessing isn't merely a feud between celebrities, it is the collapse of carefully cultivated myths, the crumbling of facades built over a decade of mutual promotion, mutual benefit, and mutual exploitation. And Taylor, who once reveled in Blake's Instagram birthday tributes and Ryan's playful cameos, now feels the crushing weight of knowing that every smile she flashed beside them, every laugh caught by paparazzi lenses, is being reinterpreted as a mask, a performance concealing darker undercurrents. And while Taylor is no stranger to reinvention, having survived everything from Kanye interruptions to Scooter Braun betrayals, this time feels different, because the enemy is not an outsider but someone she once called family. And that betrayal cuts deeper, becomes harder to spin into a triumphant chorus, especially as Justin Baldoni's evidence reportedly contains not just financial irregularities but personal messages, communications that, if revealed, could paint a portrait of manipulation so intricate it makes even Hollywood insiders gasp. And already speculation swirls about whether Ryan knew, whether he was complicit, or whether he too was a pawn in Blake's alleged ambition. A husband distracted by his own empire building while his wife moved money like chess pieces on a board only she could see. And the irony of Ryan's Deadpool persona, forever breaking the fourth wall, mocking the absurdity of fame, is that now he cannot quip his way out of a deposition, cannot wink at the camera to dissolve tension, because courtrooms have no laugh track, no edit button. And while some fans remain fiercely loyal, declaring Blake a victim of misogynistic framing, others point to patterns, to whispers of controlling behavior and ruthless networking, painting her less as a wronged woman, and more as a master manipulator whose golden veneer is finally cracking. And into this storm walks Travis Kelce, bewildered by the rules of a game he never signed up to play, A man used to playbooks and strategies now blindsided by the chaos of PR wars, struggling to reconcile the woman he loves, whose artistry and vulnerability he cherishes, with the headlines that insist she may soon be grilled under oath about her best friend's alleged schemes, and his frustration has reportedly boiled over in private, confiding to teammates that he hates seeing Taylor dragged down by someone else's mess, that he never wanted to become tabloid fodder, but now feels the sting of every joke, every late-night host who pairs his touchdowns with Taylor's legal troubles, reducing his athletic legacy to a punchline. And yet he stays, standing by her side, because loyalty for him is not transactional. It is bone deep, forged on fields where trust determines victory or defeat. And Taylor, caught between gratitude and guilt, finds herself asking whether her silence in the past enabled Blake's audacity, whether her desire to believe in friendship blinded her to warning signs others noticed long ago. Because in Hollywood, no betrayal comes without whispers beforehand. And hindsight is the cruelest of judges, replaying every moment where truth hid in plain sight. And the whispers grow louder as Justin Baldoni, once mocked for his earnestness, now positions himself as a man unwilling to let power protect wrongdoing, a role he never auditioned for, but now embraces with the calm precision of someone who knows he has the receipts, who knows that once they drop, the narrative will no longer be speculation but fact. And in this way Baldoni has shifted from background player to central antagonist in Blake's story, though in truth he sees himself not as antagonist but as protagonist, the one willing to speak when others stayed quiet, the one refusing to let stardom shield corruption. And it is this moral high ground, this insistence on transparency, that terrifies Blake most, because she has always thrived in the shadows of suggestion, in the subtle art of narrative control. And against Baldoni's blunt insistence on evidence, on sworn testimony, her weapons suddenly feel dull, ineffective, and the looming deposition of Taylor Swift is her greatest fear, for Taylor is too famous, too scrutinized, to bend the truth without the world noticing, and no amount of rehearsal can prepare her for the piercing silence of a courtroom where every word is weighed, every hesitation dissected. And so Blake scrambles, staging public outings with Ryan, planting stories in friendly outlets, trying to frame herself as misunderstood rather than malicious. But the public, jaded by years of celebrity spin, grows skeptical, parsing every gesture for insincerity, every smile for cracks, and Ryan too cannot hide the strain, his once effortless charm now reading as defensive, brittle, as though even he has begun to wonder whether he has been living inside a performance crafted not for him but for the world. And Taylor, meanwhile, finds herself haunted by lyrics she once wrote about betrayal, lines sung with passion on stage now echoing back at her with cruel irony. Because this betrayal is not creative fodder. It is lived reality, one that threatens not only her friendships but her reputation, her empire, her carefully guarded image as both vulnerable artist and shrewd businesswoman. And while she has survived scandals before, this one cuts differently, because the line between victim and enabler is razor thin, and every fan, every critic, every lawyer will be eager to decide which side of that line she falls on. And as the days tick toward potential court dates, as Baldoni's camp leaks just enough to keep tension high, Hollywood waits breathless, because it has been years since a scandal of this magnitude threatened so many A-listers at once. And the fascination lies not just in the evidence but in the psychology. What drives someone like Blake to risk it all? What compels someone like Ryan to look the other way? What forces someone like Taylor into silence? And what emboldens someone like Baldoni to finally pull back the curtain? And though Travis is an outsider in many ways, his role as Taylor's anchor, her reality check, her reminder of a world outside Hollywood's games, may ultimately be what saves her sanity, though whether it saves her career is another question, because if the deposition happens, if she is truly forced to testify, the fallout will be seismic, not just for Blake but for Taylor herself, for Ryan's empire, for Travis's image, and for Justin's future, because in exposing others he risks exposing himself, his motives, his alliances, and in Hollywood every hero eventually becomes a villain in someone else's story. And as the saga barrels forward with no clear resolution, the only certainty is that the glittering illusion of friendship has shattered, leaving only shards sharp enough to wound everyone who touches them. Privately raging at how his wife's strategy had dragged their carefully built empire into the mud, because Reynolds wasn't just an actor. He was a businessman with brands, endorsements, and a global persona built on reliability, all of which risked collateral damage as Blake's credibility disintegrated. And what made it even more dangerous was the looming figure of Taylor Swift, whose close friendship with Blake had been trumpeted for years as one of Hollywood's most wholesome alliances, yet now stood at risk of collapsing under the pressure of legal subpoenas, conflicting truths, and whispered betrayals. Subscribe my channel Coravanta for more updates daily. We says to sorry because we did not upload yesterday. Thanks or watching. Subscribe my channel. Thanks. Subscribe my channel Coravanta for more updates daily. We says to sorry because we did not upload yesterday. Thanks or watching. Subscribe my channel. Thanks.